morning from your Roman consul Maria Cristina Saraceno. We are back for the next module of the Treasures of Rome. In the last module, we saw how in Rome, you always have to ask yourself, what is under here? It may be ancient homes or domus, temples, public buildings, cemeteries, quarries for tufa, aqueducts or sewers, or even bunkers like Mussolini's bunker under Villa Torlonia, or lakes. There's a big lake under Rome. In this module, we are going to learn how to see Rome from above, so as if we were on an airplane. In the next module, we're going to see Rome from the eye level up. So this module, Rome from above. Let's have a look at what we can learn. We are going to see the revelations from the sky, and for that, we only need our telephone. It's in our pocket. So easy. We left off at the octagonal room in Nero's Domus Aurea. Remember, you can go. It's an open dig. You'll be wearing helmets. It's only open on Saturdays and Sundays. Now, did the Romans like the fact that after the Great Fire, Nero repossessed a huge area of Rome to build his own personal palace, complete with a lake, which is where now the Colosseum is, and a forest where he could go hunting for exotic beasts that had been brought in from the corners of the empire? No, the Romans did not like that one bit. So what did they do? Well, after Nero's death, the Romans wanted to forget his selfish grandeur, and so they covered up the Domus Aurea. You cannot see anything at eye level. So this is the park where the Domus Aurea is. It's called Colle Oppio. You can see the Colosseum because that's a stone throw away, but you have no idea the Domus Aurea is here. In fact, both Emperor Titus and Emperor Trajan built their own baths on top, public baths. You can still see the remains of them, but you cannot see the Golden House at all. Or can you? Well, if you have a look from up above, from the sky, you can see the Colosseum in this corner, and then there is the park on the Oppian Hill, Colle Oppio, where we have seen there are some ruins of the bath. But look, what is this here? Let's see it from a bit of closer. At eye level, you will not know the octagonal room is there or any other part of the Domus Aurea, but from the sky you can actually see the oculus now. It is all underground. It's a fantastic place. You can see it, spot it from the sky. I strongly suggest you go and have a look at it. It's only open on Saturdays and Sundays, and to get a reservation you need to go to www.coopculture.it for Italy, or you can call this number. It's 0639967700. Coop Culture manages a lot of sites where you cannot normally go, so get onto the Coop Culture website and have a look at what you can do, which most people will not be able to have access to. Now, today we've got all the technology to be cutting-edge explorers. It's in your pocket, and so use it. Get onto your telephone and have a look. So, for example, have you ever heard that all roads lead to Rome? Well, at the time, the Romans built lots and lots of roads from Rome and around. So, Movie Lab did a study on how to reach Rome from 500,000 points in Europe. And this is the results. All roads truly lead to Rome. Now, if you do this with other European capitals, you do not get the same effect. It doesn't matter if you do it from Madrid or from Paris or from Berlin, you are simply not going to get the same effect of all the roads leading to them. The popes wanted to create an immediate wow effect for pilgrims, kings, emperors coming to Rome. So what did they do? They figured out where people were coming in from. Let's have a look. Most people were coming in from the north through this way. And they arrived in Rome through a gate in the ancient Roman walls, in the Aurelian walls, called the Porta Flaminia, which is the Flaminian Gate. So it was a marketing imperative that they should be wowed as soon as they got to Rome and they crossed Porta Flaminia. So will you, if you start your explorations of Rome here. We are talking about this gate. And it's a very famous gate. It leads you on to Piazza del Popolo. Now, this is Porta Flaminia from the inside. What you see, it's been remade by a very famous artist in Rome who has built lots and lots of things, and we're going to talk about him in a future module. It's called Gian Lorenzo Bernini. He has redecorated with marble the ancient Flaminian door, and he's redone it for a very special occasion, for a queen of Sweden, Christina, who had given up her Protestant faith and had converted to Catholicism, and had hence decided to come to Rome and move there. So the Pope at the time, Alexander VII, Chigi, he had Bernini redecorate this gate, and up at the top you can see, and you're gonna see it often during the Corso, very often while you are in Rome, the 6 mounds topped with a star that were the symbol of Alessandro VII. Now, both Alessandro and Bernini are the two main creators of the colonnade around the main square in St. Peter's. So when you hear those names, just think of the colonnade in St. Peter's. But here they came together to make this gate more beautiful. And once you got through the door, you got to Piazza del Popolo. It's a monumental entrance for any visitors coming to Rome, although it's an enormous phallic symbol. And right next to the Flaminian Gate lies a treasure chest, Santa Maria del Popolo. So just on the side of the picture here, you can see the gate. And right next to it, you can see a seemingly unassuming church. This is one you really want to get into. Why? Because everybody came to Rome through that door. Everybody needed to be wowed, and so wowed they were. So Nero's ashes were said to have been buried here on this site. A walnut tree grew on top of the ashes on the mausoleum of the Domitians, and the crows living on it were thought to be devils. So what happened? In 1099, to exorcise the area, the first chapel to the Virgin Mary was created, but in the late 1400s, the church was rebuilt by a very famous pope, Sixtus IV della Rovere. We're going to talk about Sixtus IV because he made some laws that really allowed Rome to be rebuilt throughout the Renaissance. Now, some of the world's art treasures are in the church of Santa Maria del Popolo. It was like a showcase introduction to Rome, and so anyone wanted to be buried in this church. As you can see, I'm just showing you the plan of the church. There were lots of chapels, and so a lot of very wealthy either dignitaries or cardinals wanted to be buried in this church, and they had lots of money. So they could commission the best artists of the time to have masterpieces for their little bits of the church. So you are going to find masterpieces by Bramante and Raphael and Bernini and Caravaggio and Pinturicchio and Algardi, and all of these masterpieces made this church extremely precious. And yes, you might know about this church if you've read Dan Brown's Angels and Demons. One of the churches mentioned in the book was this one. Now, until the early 1800s, the square Piazza del Popolo used to be rectangular. So the two beautiful churches, the two twin churches, which are not twins at all, but they sort of look similar. And on the sides, there were convents and housing, and it looked rectangular. This is a painting up by Gaspar Van Vittel, which in Italian we call Van Vitelli, very Italianized. But if you look at it from the sky now, you can see that in the early 1800s, the popes decided to make the square even more grandiose. And they enrolled the architect, Giuseppe Valadier, to make the square even more beautiful than it already was. And this is the result. So if you need to meet some friends, as many people do when they're traveling, the obelisk is a much loved meeting point. It's like, it's a piazza, everybody lies and basks in the sun, meets their friends, has a chat before moving on for a walk in the center of town. If you look up, you will see a view of the Pincio Terrace, la Terrazza del Pincio, and you can climb all the way up the stairs and have a majestic view of Piazza del Popolo from above. Now this is Piazza del Popolo in a painting from the 1800s that you can see at the Museo di Roma in Trastevere. And you can see that Romans always used this piazza, even in the 1800s, for big parties. It is still used for parties and concerts and trade unions manifestations now. If you go there on Christmas or on New Year's Eve, you're going to have so much fun. And throughout the years, lots of concerts are scheduled in this square. Now, once you're there, what kind of experiences would you like next? Do you want to go to a mall with huge big shops and also small family shops? Or do you want to go and see a streets with antiques dealers and very fancy shops? Or do you want to go and get some art supplies? Are you sketching while you are in Rome? That's one of the best ways to remember the monuments. Just grab hold of a sketching pad and set off sketching all around town. You will find huge, big groups of art students from all over the world sketching all the big monuments around the place. So you will never be alone sketching. Nobody will look at you in a funny way. Romans are totally used to anyone from around the world sitting down on a step and sketching the masterpieces in front of them. So these are your three options from the Piazza del Popolo, from the square. We call it the trident, il tridente, and you can see why, because it is a trident. You can go to the mall. That is the line in the middle. That is called the Piazza Via del Corso, the Corso, because it usually, in ancient times, not in ancient times, like 200 years ago, used to be the racecourse. The popes had a carnival, a big race called the race of the Berber horses without jockeys. And in this street you find all the shops like H&M, Zara, and all the mall shops. We don't really have malls in the center of Rome, so this would be your mall. Then, this is also the street that's got a monumental entrance with the two twin churches, and it was used by emperors and queens and pilgrims on the way to the Vatican. So, for example, Christina of Sweden would have come through the Porta Flaminia and then gone down all the way down to Piazza Venezia and then turned into the papal way to go to the Vatican and pay her respects. But if you want antique dealers and upmarket shops, you are going to go to the streets on the left. That is called Via del Babuino, and it leads you straight to Spanish Steps. Very fancy shops in these streets, but there are cars, so do pay attention. In the mall one, for a big part of the mall, there are no cars, only the teeny-weeny little baby buses. If you're looking for antiques, I suggest you also explore around Via dei Coronari and Via dell'Orso and Via Giulia. plenty of little restorers and boutique antique shops. If you want the art supplies, you go to the other street, the one on the right. So it's called the Via di Ripetta, because it's almost on the banks of the river Tiber, and Ripa means banks of the river. You can get your ancient dolls or toys fixed. You have plenty of quirky shops, but the reasons why you've got a lot of art supply shops is that on Via di Ripetta there is Rome's Fine Art University, Istituto delle Belle Arti, Institute of the Beautiful Arts. And then if you keep going on this Via di Ripetta, you will not find Spanish Steps, which is on the Antiques Dealers Street, Via del Babuino. You will not find Piazza Venezia, which is at the end of the Mall Street, the Corso, but you will find Piazza Augusto Imperatore, so Square Augustus Emperor. And on Augustus Emperor Square, you will find both the mausoleum to Augustus, where a lot of emperors, Augustus and after Augustus, were buried, and also you will find the Ara Pacis Augustae, so the altar of to the Augustan peace, which didn't used to be there in ancient times, but it's been moved there for convenience, because now it would be under buildings if it hadn't been moved. And then you can keep going through Via della Scrofa and you will get towards the Pantheon and Piazza Navona. If these are not enough options for you, I personally love the panoramic way. So what you do, you've got your Piazza del Popolo with the trident, and at the end of Via di Ripetta you find the mausoleum of Augustus and the Ara Pacis. At the end of the Corso you will find, much further down, Piazza Venezia. At the end of Via del Babuino you will find the Spanish Steps. But if you climb up to the Pincho Terrace, then you can go through the panoramic way. And the panoramic way, it's most beautiful. You can see over all the Roman skyline, and then you will get to the top of Spanish Steps. You will also go in front, you will pass by Villa Medici, which is now the French Academy, l'Accademia Francese, and so it now hosts French artists. You can go there for concerts, exhibitions, or just to have a look at the beautiful gardens and the villa. So Romans, this is from that panoramic way. The Romans miss having a garden, and so they love to have garden terraces. Whenever you are up at the top, there are plenty of panorama spots in Rome because there's plenty of hills. Have a look at the gardens, at the garden terraces. We have fantastic parties on garden terraces in Rome. And this is where you will get to. So as I was saying, check out the exhibitions and the concerts at Villa Medici. And then you will get here, Trinity of the Mounts. So it's the church that is on top of Spanish Steps. You might then walk down Spanish Steps and you might find some people at work to restore the area. You will find that in Rome, every day, thousands of restorers work away to preserve Rome's treasures for us and our children. You'll find them all around town. So, when you look from above, you will find both the big picture clues and details of interesting stories. I'll make an example. For example, for big picture observations, what do you reckon? Is Rome an ideal ancient Roman city? One would think it is, because it is Rome, after all. Well, no, it's not. So, this is what an ideal Roman city looks like. It's like Vienna or York, who have been created by Romans. It's a grid. This one is a place where I was born. it's a military camp, so a grid, turned into a city. This is Turin, that at the time was called Augusta Taurinorum. This is Rome. Does it look like a grid at all? Not one bit. So is it the ideal Roman city? Not at all. Super messy. This is still Rome, and there is a grid-like area, so what are you gonna think? I just told you Rome is not an ideal Roman city at all. Well, if it looks like a grid, you can be sure it was developed after 1870, like this area called Prati, which mean fields. So during ancient Roman times, this was out of Rome, it was the fields. After 1870, after the Piemontese and the state of Italy invaded Rome to make it its capital and oust the Pope as the king, then a lot more people came and lived here, they needed a lot more housing, and they started building in a grid-like fashion. Let's have a look at another example of big picture observation. Where would you confine the sick so that they do not spread diseases? Have a look at this aerial picture of Rome. Is there a place where you would put a hospital in a city of over 1 million people, which it was in ancient Roman times? This grassy area is the ancient Roman Forum, and you can spot the Colosseum right next to it. Well, have a look at the island. Sick people should not be in contact with all the healthy ones, so they were just put on the island. And the Tiberine Island has been a health precinct for both the Catholic and the Jewish community for centuries. There's 2 hospitals, the Fate Bene Fratelli and the Jewish hospital. I've had 3 of my 4 children at the Fate Bene Fratelli, the Catholic hospital on the island, because we used to live in Papua New Guinea at the time, and if you've got a chance, you get out of Papua New Guinea to have your children. It's still very dangerous. Maternal and infant mortality in Papua New Guinea is still through the roof. So every time I travelled back, came here to the Tiberine Island to have my children. 4th one, we were in Australia already, born right here on the Gold Coast. So we had a look and we saw that on the Tiberine Island there are 2 hospitals, not just the Catholic one, but the Jewish one as well. Because the Jewish community has been part of Rome for over 2,000 years. Long before Rome conquered Jerusalem under Emperor Vespasian, but it was his son Titus who actually conquered it, a lot of Jewish traders had come to Rome already. So they've been in Rome for over 2,000 years. It's not a homogeneous community, but rather one that has unified communities from lots of different areas through millennia. So there's the Roman community, the Sicilian community that had to come up, the Catalan community, the Castilian community, the Libyan community that came during Mussolini's empire in the 1930s. And they all come together as one community today. Another example of an interesting story, which, by the way, still is a testimony of the large Roman Jewish community, is the Rome Rose Garden. Now have a look from the sky and tell me if you can spot a menorah or a Jewish candle holder. Let's see what you can spot. There is the river, there is the Tiberine Island, where I had 3 of my kids. On this side you can see the ancient Roman ruins of the Forum. Then you can see the Circus Maximus, where chariot games used to be played. And then, just on the other side of the Circus Maximum, you can see a menorah. Why would it be there? Well, it's Rome's Rose Garden now, but it used to be, in ancient Roman times, it used to be the temple to the goddess Flora used to be there. So there used to be a lot of flowers and a lot of gardens and veggie gardens. And then it stayed as a garden area and a veggie garden area all throughout 1645. In 1645, the Jewish cemetery was moved here from Porta Portese. And so it was not only the Jewish l'orto degli ebrei, the Jewish garden, but also the Jewish cemetery. In 1934, the Jewish cemetery was moved to the Verano. Although some of the unmarked graves, because in some periods of Rome, the popes forbid the Jewish community from putting names on their graves, some unmarked graves might still be there. In 1934, it stopped being the Jewish cemetery, and in 1950 became the Rose Garden. And so the city of Rome, to pay tribute to the very long history of the Jewish community in this site, they put a marble plaque at the entrance of the Rose Garden, but they also shaped the garden as a Jewish candle holder. Don't miss it in May. It's a spectacular place. One day in May it's actually closed as there is a Rose Prize. And so they're just adjudicating the Rose Prize on that day. But check it out. It's an amazing, beautiful place. And it also has the views, because it's up on the hill, it has the views of both the Circus Maximus and of the Palatine Hill. So in this module, we learned looking at Rome from above. And if we learned that if we look at Rome from above, we can spot both big picture clues and details of stories. In the next module, we are going to have a look from eye level upwards and see what we can discover. So from your Roman Consul, Maria Cristina Saraceno, ciao ciao, and arrivederci in the next module. Bye!